All right, wonderful. So again, thank you for taking the time to do this. I just have a handful of questions here. More will pop up. But before you got into Tenshin IQ, you actually first traveled to Japan. So what prompted you to travel to Japan and essentially stay there for I think it was a few years if I remember. So how'd you get to Japan
So
first?
yeah, really it kind of started in when I was in high school. I went to high school in Philadelphia. I went to a place called Germantown Friends School. I grew up in South Philly, and a buddy of mine turned me on to this karate sensei named Ski or Gerald Evans, and he was this black dude from West Philly. He was probably in his 50s when I started practicing with him, and he was awesome. I mean, I would go take his class after school, and he would just share openly and teach us kata. He'd spar with me, and I knew nothing, right? So he was really sort of my first introduction to Japanese martial arts. Um, and then I graduated high school. I went to NYU for a year, and I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I said, you know what? I heard that Ski had fought the Japanese champion, this guy Tanaka, to a draw in the Budokan. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go practice with Tanaka. That'd be cool. I'll go practice with Tanaka. So, and by the way, I found out like 30 years later that Ski didn't fight Tanaka to a draw. Ski he beat him, and he was the world Shotokan champion. I guess it's JKA for 1973 and 1974. And I practiced with Ski for years, and he never once mentioned that, and it wasn't like around the dojo. So I mean, he was super humble, and I don't think you really see that today. He just passed away a few months ago, by the way.
Oh,
Um, so I finished my freshman year at NYU. I'm not sure what I want to do. I said, okay, I'm going to go to Japan and practice with Tanaka. I sell my motorcycle. I have like $2,000. I get on. And this is before the internet, right? No cell phones, no internet. And I sent like a traveler's check to a youth hostel in Tokyo because that's where Tanaka's dojo was. I think it was like in Ikebukuro or somewhere like that. I get over here. I arrive at the airport, Narita, then, and I call the youth hostel. I'm like, all right, I'm coming. They're like, oh no, we don't have a room for you. I'm sorry. Like, what are you talking about? Like, so there was like this giant like information booklet at like the traveler section. It was like huge 3 ring binder, right? All laminated. And I found one other youth hostel. And I mean, I could tell this story for days, but to make a long story short, I'm like in this youth hostel. I go to Tanaka's dojo, and I didn't expect them to love me, but they were just so goddamn mean. They were so goddamn mean. And I was
oh,
like, you know what? Before I decide to stay with these guys, this buddy of mine, he encouraged me to get out of Tokyo and go down to Kyoto and really see old Japan before I got sort of locked into my daily work life in Tokyo. I was all right. That's good advice. So I hitchhiked down to Kyoto. I was 19 at the time, and I really ended up really loving it down there, and I got a job down there teaching English. And I said, okay, I'll just train down here. Fuck Tanaka, basically. I don't need to. You know, I could do it, but it just didn't matter enough. So I was looking for a karate dojo, I had to work from like 5 to 9 p.m., something like that, teaching English in Osaka. So I was living in Kyoto, commuting to Osaka every day to teach English, and all the karate dojos had class at the same time that I had to work. I'm like, oh my god, this is stupid. I just came like 7,000 miles to practice karate, and I can't go because I got to work. I should have stayed at home with Ski. He was better anyway. So I go to the Kyoto tourist board, and again I go through another giant 3 ring binder, and I see that there's this Aikido dojo on my train line, and it's like a few stops from where I have to get off for work. It's in Juso on the Hankyu Sen. Um, so I'm like, all right, let me go check it out. I've heard of Aikido. I saw Above the Law at that point, and I go to this Aikido dojo, and I had no idea it was Seagal's ex-wife, Miyako Fujitani's dojo. I just knew it was an Aikido dojo. And I walk in, and there's this little Asian lady who was probably like 30, and she's like throwing people around the room. And I was blown away. I was just blown away. It was so beautiful, so powerful, so awesome. I just fell in love with it. Uh, so that's I could say it's just by chance, by accident. Um, that's how I first discovered the Tenshin Dojo.
Wow, I mean, that's like a roller coaster of a ride just there. Getting to Tokyo, finding out the youth hostel it doesn't have a room. Tanaka's dojo is just hostile, and you're just traveling back and forth. Um, so when you found the Tenshin Dojo and you started training, I mean, obviously Shotokan karate and Aikido are two different training methods, but did your previous Shotokan training help you in any way, shape, or form with Aikido in the beginning stage?
Oh yeah, I mean absolutely, because um, I mean, I knew I had to bow before class, I knew there was going to be a warm up and then some other stuff was going to happen and I was going to bow at the end. So, I mean, in a way I had the basic, I knew some basic Japanese martial arts protocol, which I think was really helpful. Um, and then, on the other side of it, Aikido's, some is based on somebody attacking you. And I certainly knew how to ski taught me how to attack. I knew how to punch, and a lot of people did, and a lot of people, and this is still true to this day. I mean, a lot of Aikido schools are very weak in their attacks. Um, so yeah, I, I, I felt like I had the basics, and then they were very open. I mean, I mean, Fujitani Sensei was, I mean, she still is, an amazing, sweet, open, badass martial artist. Um, I don't know if that answers your question.
No, no, it does. It does. And that actually leads me into my next question is how would you describe or characterize the training that you experienced under Fujitani Sensei?
It was playful, but at the same time, like deadly serious and efficient and effective. I mean, it wasn't. It was playful in the spirit, but it wasn't about doing stuff that wasn't effective. If that makes sense, it was very like I mean, I think I finally found them. I arrived in Japan, I think in October or November, and I probably found them around December. Um, and they would practice with the windows open. And Japan's like, I don't know where you are, but I'm from Philadelphia, and Philadelphia in December it's cold.
Hmm.
Um, and like your feet would turn blue, because the mats and it wasn't like these foam like bouncy tatami either. It was like getting thrown on concrete. I mean, um, but I'll tell you. So this maybe encapsulates it the best, because I still remember to this day, after like 2 or 3 weeks probably of training, I remember this thought went through my head. I was 19, right? And I'm practicing with Fujitani's probably 30. And, I think her sister's another one of the sensei. And then there's another young guy there who was, freaking like a Japanese Bruce Lee. I mean, he's amazing. Um, but I remember thinking, oh my God, I've never seen people this old, this happy. Like they were just so happy. Like when they practiced, they were so happy. Everyone was just like stoked. They're just happy. They throw you and they'd smile, you know. You fuck up the technique and they'd be like, it's no problem. And they'd smile and they'd show you how to do it right. And really, I was thinking, gosh, um, I'm going to keep doing this, because when I'm that old, I'm going to be that happy.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. I actually hope there's more of that in just the dojos where it's not like just a whole bunch of posturing and trying to throw each other really hard. Um, but you mentioned that Fujitani Sensei and everyone they were doing IQ that was a little more effective, or there wasn't any waste of movement energy. So how much of that was Fujitani's sensei's Aikido as opposed to Steven Seagal's Aikido? Since I know they both cold taught during the early times of that. So you know
So, so,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
so I got there. I was there. I think it was '88, right? I think Seagal left in '85. him and Matsuoka Sensei left in like 85. So I missed them by like 3 years. Um, so let me say it to you like this, okay? So
Hmm.
I started at the Tenshin Dojo in Osaka, and I was at that time I was there for less than a year, and then but that was also my first taste of Aikido. So I was like stoked, I'm like I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. But at the same time, living in Japan, I wanted to, I kind of wanted to get back to the States and finish university.
Hmm.
So I came back to the States and I started going to every Aikido dojo I could find, and I was like, holy shit, like it's not the same
Hmm.
actually. Like I trained, like there were probably 3 dojos in Philadelphia at the time. There were, I mean, Yamada Sensei in New York. There's two or three other guys in New York at this time, and no disrespect to any of them. Some of them are more evolved and less evolved than others, but nowhere was I getting that taste, that juice
Hmm.
that I got with Fujitani Sensei. So let me say to you like this. I sometimes tell people that I first started practicing Aikido with Seagal's wife. And if you've been married, you know that Seagal probably learned his Aikido from his wife.
Okay.
I kind of make a joke about it, but I think that they're all of what you typically call Tenshin style, or what you'd call, if you see Seagal practice and his sort of derivative in grandchild and grandchild dojos. Um, I was doing that in the Tenshin dojo in 88, 89 with Fujitani, and um, it was exactly the same. So, so what was the root of that? Like, did Seagal come over to Japan, and then all of a sudden he had this epiphany and start teaching his wife this new style of Aikido? Or was she part of this Aikido family because, her father owned the dojo, right?
Hmm.
So, I don't know the truth of where that, I mean, and if I don't know if you even practice Aikido or how long you've been practicing or what styles you practice, but um, you've got the hard styles, the middle styles, the super soft styles, right?
Hmm.
Um, but that Tenshin Aikido was completely like, you don't see those covering moves and all these moves anywhere else.
Hmm.
Um, so I still practice Aikikai sometimes here in Tokyo, and they're not doing that. So very difficult question. It's kind of a chicken or egg question.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, because like, yeah, because like it's never really, or he never really explained it. It was just kind of like, yeah, it's my thing. But like it's always kind of weird because like he did go to Aikikai Hanbu. He did train under some of the Shihan there, and again, knowing Aikikai, um they don't do that stuff. So somewhere outside of Aikikai, right? Either he picked it up, or like you said, Fujitani Sensei was doing it. So
Well, let me say this to you too, because I've also practiced with Abe Sensei down at the Ame no Takemusu Dojo in Suida, right, in Osaka. And
mhm,
Abe Sensei, who's since passed, his son and his grandson are teaching now, as well as Takeda Sensei down there, of course. But I practiced with those guys. Matsuoka Sensei brought us over and introduced us, and I practiced with them, and they don't do that stuff. I mean, their Aikido is amazing. I mean, it's absolutely like other than I mean, they're very closely related, and uh, and if you ever get a chance to go practice with them, it's very powerful. And he had like a Misogi dojo in his dojo as well. But they're not doing these covers, this cover stuff, which I think is really the sort of the signature of the Seagal forget Seagal, the
mhm.
Tenshin Aikido. Um, so it's a mystery. I mean, maybe he went up in the mountains and the Tengu taught him, or maybe I mean,
Yeah, maybe. I mean, or something else, right?
I don't, I mean, that's for me. That's really the greatest. It's the greatest mystery is where did that come from? Because I haven't seen it anywhere else. You
Hmm.
know, um, I'm practicing with a sword school now. It's a 400-year-old sword school called Tenshin Ryu Hyoho, and they were doing some open hand technique the other day, and I thought I knew more because I was like, I do Aikido. This technique comes from Aikido, and all of a sudden I realized, no, 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 no. So this is 400 years old, man. Like Aikido comes from this. Um, and a lot of the sword stuff is a lot of the. I think it, and Seagal probably says it too, that a lot of his cover moves there's it's just it's just sword stuff. It's just sword covers and sword techniques. So, in a way that it could be, and again, I'm completely speculating. It could be that he really put in a lot of time with the sword, and then one day he woke up and he's like, "I'm going to do it with my arms," in a different way. I mean,
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try and make it a point to actually find out the root of that because I know there's a lot of hearsay with him and his own history. So I do want to try actually find that out. So actually, thank you for bringing it up, and thank you for making me do some more work. So really
you know who you
appreciate
should
it.
you know who you should really talk to if you can is Craig Dunn. Is he on your radar?
He is on my radar. Actually, I'm trying to remember if I sent him an email. He, I think I sent him an email, and I think he declined to
He
participate.
might have. So I have a little podcast I do, like, I interview somebody like every 3 months or something, and
Mhm.
I was trying to get him on, and um Craig, if you're listening to this, you're a crabby motherfucker, and that's fine, and I don't mind, but you're crabby, but you got some information and you need to share it for the next generations. Okay, so uncrab for a little bit and share it. Um, but so he was at the Tenshin dojo, like Matsuoka's probably I mean, he's like Matsuoka Sensei's colleague, because they
Mhm.
were both at the Juso dojo training under Seagal. So I got there. I mean, he's. I mean, I'm sure there were other foreigners there, and of course there's other Japanese people there. Um, but he was Matsuoka's contemporary, so he definitely has a lot of knowledge. And I'll tell you something. I've been back in Japan for a couple of years now, but I've been in Tokyo, not Osaka. Um, but I've been planning to get down there, and I'll see what I can research from this side as well, from the Japanese people. I mean, I haven't been thinking about it too much, but that's for my edification as well. So let's see if we can track that down.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And maybe I can reach out to Craig Dunn Sensei again. Use your name or something, see what
Yeah,
happens.
you can use my name. That'll help you a lot. Um, there's another guy, which is kind of next generation. His name is Akihiro Takeda, and he teaches at Abe Sensei's dojo in Osaka. He might be a good person to talk to, but you might need a translator. I can't remember how good his English is.
Mhm.
Um, uh, and of course, there's the younger Abe Sensei and his son too. Anyway, if you're interested, we can try. If you're interested in doing more research, I'm happy to help suggest some people you might try and get in touch with. Um,
No, absolutely. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Um, okay, right. Sorry, I'm just looking at my questions again. So last question on Japan, at least for this timeline right now. So um the training that you experienced at under Fujitani Sensei was great. It was joyful, it was fun. What was she like as an instructor, and how did she approach Aikido training and instruction?
I mean, she would. I mean, just class would start, and you'd hear her walking up the stairs, and you'd get in seiza, and then you'd bow to the altar, and you'd clap, and then she'd warm you up and demonstrate a technique. I mean, it was it was no not a lot of talking. You know, um, she might say a couple words here and there, but she would go right into demonstrating the techniques. And um, if I remember properly, one thing is that she would come and she would practice with everybody in the class. So she would come and check. She'd put her hands on you and check you and see where you were. Um, and if you got it wrong, she'd smile and laugh and gently correct you. And if you got it wrong a few times, she'd be like, "Come on now." Um, but I just remember her as being, like a present, no nonsense, with a happy heart, and having no problem being serious and correcting you. but again, and she's still down there teaching. I just haven't been back. I mean, uh, and I, there's, I don't know what the relationship. I've spent the last, probably probably since 1990, I've considered myself a disciple, or I've considered Haruo Matsuoka Sensei my mentor. Um, and I don't know really what his relationship is with the Juso Tenshin Dojo anymore, with Fujitani Sensei anymore. So I haven't really gone out of my way to go reconnect down there, but it is on my to-do list now that I'm here, because it was such an important turning point in my life. I mean,
Yeah. No, I get you. And then
let me
you,
say it another.
oh,
Let
yeah,
me say it another way. Okay, if I have to
yeah,
describe
go ahead.
Fujitani Sensei's Aikido instruction, perfect, like the best. Like no, I mean, I'm not even joking. Like, if every Aikido class I've ever been to, Fujitani, Matsuoka Sensei, Steven Seagal, Abe Sensei are the best. And I've trained with Yamada, I've trained with Kuroiwa, I've trained with like a lot of, again, and I'm not, I haven't trained with as many people as a lot of other people have, but I've trained with enough people that for me, and then this is for me, right? Everyone's got their own taste. You go do Taekwondo, it doesn't bother me, right? But for me, Fujitani's just was amazing, and so were her two Deshi teachers as well. So I want to say Nakamichi. I think it was Satoshi. I think it was Satoshi Nakamichi Sensei, maybe, and I think it was also her sister was teaching at the time. But phenomenal.
Oh, no, that's really great. You actually bring up Matsuoka Sensei in California. So, I guess just to clarify the timeline that you said like a few minutes ago, is that you came back after a year-ish in Japan. You came back, finished up university, and was it during that time or was it after that time that you found Matsuoka Sensei in California?
So, um, so I came. I went to Japan initially, came back to the States for a year, and went back to school for a year, and I was like going through withdrawal for not practicing at the Tenshin Dojo. Um, so I went back. I went back for more. Um, but when I went back the second time, it was really hard to find work. Like it was sort of the peak of the bubble. It was really saturated with foreigners who could teach English, and that's kind of was the only job I was really eligible for. So I only stayed for, I don't know, maybe 2 months, um, and then went back to the States, and then I didn't even know of I didn't know of Matsuoka. I didn't know there was a Tenshin dojo in Los Angeles, and it was my, I think, very first time in California. I was visiting a friend from high school. I did a cross country road trip for the first time, and I was staying with a high school friend in West Hollywood. And I woke up in the morning. I said, "Okay, I'm gonna go walk and get a cup of coffee." And I walked down to La Cienega and I think Santa Monica Boulevard, and I see this sign that says Tenshin Dojo, and I'm like, "What? That's that's ridiculous. That's my dojo." And so I go up there, and it's Matsuoka Sensei is basically running Seagal's dojo. Um, so that's when I encountered Seagal. And that was that was probably 1 year before the LA riots. I want to say it's 1990 maybe. Um, and then I fell in love all over again, because it was the same Aikido I knew, but but sort of like from the male side, actually, because Tenshin Osaka Juso Tenshin Dojo, when I was training, there was one male instructor and two sisters, so it was kind of like a female vibe, which is it was I thought was no problem. But then the LA Tenshin Dojo was like, and this was after, like, I think maybe a second movie came out. People would go hard in there. They would try to fuck you up. They would really try to fuck you up. They're like, "Oh, this Aikido stuff works. It better fucking work in here, man." Um, and then and then Seagal had a big seminar in San Jose that summer, and he was in full force power, like so charismatic, and just throwing Matsuoka around. And I mean, I'm starting to rant. Sorry, what was your question?
That's okay. No, I was just trying to figure out where along you found
Uh,
Matsuoka Sensei,
yeah,
but actually like a follow-up question is that is like how did sorry, what was the training under Matsuoka Sensei like compared to under Fujitani Sensei? Was it like literally the same or was it different?
the techniques were the same, but it was a lot scarier. It was a lot scarier. It was. I mean, it was a lot. It was a lot scarier because, and it wasn't really because it's uh, Matsuoka Sensei is he. How do I say it? Like he does not break character, so to speak. Like you're not trying to get him to laugh, and you're not like when he's in the dojo, like you're on point, like you're on like on point. And then and the guys that came there, like every dojo, like there were a lot of knuckleheads, and there's nothing worse, nothing more dangerous, I'd say, than a little bit of karate or a little bit of aikido. Like it's the beginners that are really hurt you.
Hmm.
Um, and so it was a little scarier, but it was also much more exciting. And you know, um, but I lost Matsuoka Sensei too. So I moved to I actually I started studying acupuncture at this place called Emperor's College of Traditional Chinese Medicine in Santa Monica as an excuse to go live in LA and practice with Matsuoka Sensei. Okay. Um, and then I did that for a year, and then the LA riots happened, and I said, you know what, I'm going to get out of LA for a little bit. It's too crazy. So I went back to New York and ended up finishing NYU, but always still I was still addicted to Matsuoka Sensei and to Tenshin Aikido. So I ended up moving back to LA a second time, and again, this is probably just before the internet's really catching on. I mean, nobody has an email address. I don't have a cell phone yet, but I moved back to LA to practice with Matsuoka Sensei, and he's not there. I go to the dojo and it's gone. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm looking in the phone book. I can see the address. I go there. He's not there. And I didn't know he moved back to Japan
Oh wow.
for like two. He left. He moved back to Japan. I think he was like living in Okinawa for 2 years. I think and who knows? Maybe I don't know. I've never talked to him actually about why he was back in Japan then. But I was like, what the hell, man? I just moved back a second time. And then, gosh, I mean, I may have to write out my own timeline. So I lost him, and then once again, I went to all the other Aikido dojos. I practiced with Furuiwa down in downtown LA. I practiced at there was some kind of sort of quasi Aikikai place I practiced. I practiced with Obata Sensei, the sword guy. He was in LA. And then one day I was driving down Washington Boulevard and I saw this sign that said Aikido, and I was like, man, I'm going to stop in, but it's going to suck. And it was Matsuoka. He was back, and he opened the dojo again. And that was probably, I don't know what year that was now. I mean, that might have been, it was probably in the, I don't know, 95 maybe. It was a while. So anyway, so ever since I reconnected with him, I tried to stay as close to him as possible. A couple of times I had kids and moved back to the East Coast to have them around my family.
All right. So one, thank you for that. And it's actually great that you found them again and reconnected. Um how I spoke up. So um how was Matsuoka like as an instructor? Was he very much like Fujitani Sensei, or was he his own uh
Oh no,
unique?
he's totally his own. He's totally his own unique. Uh, uh, he's his own animal. I mean, they're similar in that again. There's not a lot of talk. Matsuoka Sensei doesn't do a lot of talk. He um, he'll try to explain things from his point of view, but it's really about a feel. I mean, it's really about you got to catch the sensation, and then you got to try and recreate it. Um, but I mean, I mean, he's as far as I'm concerned, he's the best. I mean, he's the best. That's why I'll tell you, I think it took me 26 years to get my Shodan, my Aikido Shodan, from the first day I practiced. Okay. And I said, I practiced probably with 100 different Aikido sensei. I said, I'm only going to get my Shodan from Matsuoka Sensei, Sigal Sensei, or Abe Sensei. right? So Seagal and Matsuoka kind of split, and whatever Seagal was doing wasn't really my vibe. And then it was, and it wasn't like I was practicing with Abe Sensei, except for like, for 3 days every 5 years when we'd go visit him with Matsuoka. But I would have accepted a black belt from him, right? Not that he had any reason to give me one. And then there was Matsuoka Sensei. Oh, I practiced with him, practiced with him, practiced with him, practiced with him, practiced with him. It seemed like he was never going to test me. And then he eventually he did. That's a whole nother long story. It was like a 6-month long black belt test. I mean, it was nuts. It was and I made the right choice actually. If I had received my shodan from anybody else, it would have been not worth anything. Zero. So, and I still can't believe it took me that long. But they say if you're really in a hurry to get it, it's going to take you longer. Okay, I think that's true.
Oh yeah, yeah, it is. So with Matsuoka Sensei, since you had kind of like the most time there, actually, let me ask this one: when you found him again in '95, when he finally came back from Okinawa or Japan, wherever he was he still? I mean, did you notice any sort of change, good or bad, in his instruction, in his Aikido, or in anything else, or was he still like steamrolling on like he was, before
No,
the split?
No. I mean, completely different. I mean, Matsuoka, when I first started practicing him, when, I was like, whatever, 1 or 2 years out of Tenshin Dojo Osaka or something like that. And they were doing basically very similar, almost the same techniques, and very much the Seagal, this, focusing on covering and that sort of thing. And then Matsuoka's instruction really evolved. And of course, he would still teach those hand techniques, but it became something completely different. Actually, I mean, with completely different. It's not the right word. It became a total evolution to become much more. I don't want to say soft, because but it became like it's almost unspeakable, to be honest with you. I was trying to work on a documentary. I was calling it The Mysterious Technique of the Cat. Maybe I'll still do it. And the documentary was it was essentially asking the question, what is Aikido? Because when I first started practicing, if you asked me, I could tell you exactly what it was. But if you ask me now, it's like it's impossible. Like I can't put my hand on it. It's like unspeakable. It's like it's a total mystery. And what Matsuoka was doing was becoming more and more mysterious. And Abe Sensei was the way they teach down there is I think that really affected him. Actually, I think he sort of he got something maybe from Abe Sensei and practicing with them, and he incorporated it with Seagal stuff. And I don't know. Have you practiced with him ever or recently?
I have not. I'm on the East Coast, and I haven't really had, actually, since the pandemic, haven't really gone over recently. So
I mean, there's something happening that's it's mystical. I mean, it's mystical. And Matsuoka doesn't talk about it in mystical ways at all. He's very like grounded in. He'll talk about fascia and body movement, and he doesn't talk about the Omoto Kyo or Koto Dama or any of that sort of thing. He's very just present reality based, but there's something completely mystical about what happens. I mean, and I don't know if I answered your question, but it's very, if you get a chance, go to one of his classes. It's worth whatever it takes you to get there. Do it. He was teaching. I'll tell you. So he was teaching in Europe one summer, and I was always jealous of these guys that got to go and be his uke when he traveled. And I'm like, one day I want to be Matsuoka Sensei's uke. And I got off the plane in Italy, and this summer I was going to do it. I got off the plane in Italy, and this Italian guy's like, man, like, how do you get to? I want to be able to do this like you. How do you do it, man? But you know what? I sold my car to go on that trip. I sold my car. I sold my Land Rover to go on that trip. You know, that's how much it meant to me. So whatever you can do to practice with him one time. If you're into Aikido, you could be into tennis. I don't know, but you're making this thing, so I think you're probably into martial arts. But whatever you can do to practice with him, it's. I don't think it would be a waste of your time.
All right. Well, absolutely. I will make sure to keep him on my radar. Absolutely. No, I mean, no, I mean, I've been hearing nothing but positive things about Matsuoka Sensei. So that's actually great.
He's
I actually, let me ask you this question about him. What do you feel is or was the most impactful lesson that Matsuoka gave you, or you inadvertently learned from him, that still resonates with you today?
I mean, he gave me the chills. I think it would be don't quit. And this is not like a college diploma. This is something that you're going to spend your life doing, or don't bother. And that's nothing he never said that to me. He never said don't quit. He never said spend your. But that's Matsuoka. He really teaches without speaking. I mean, he like didn't talk to me for the first like 10 years I knew him. I mean, he wasn't rude. He wasn't like, he didn't ignore me. He would say, hi, how are you? And I'd say, I'm good, thank you. And then, one day we were like sitting in class next to each other, and he said, Zari, I was chanting the Lotus Sutra the other day, and I had this deep insight into martial arts. And I was like, like, you're talking to me? Like, you haven't talked to me. You haven't talked to me in 10 years, and you're a Buddhist? Like, I mean, so I mean, I'm not joking. Like, not I wasn't like not like me. Like some senseis, you go and you hang out at the bar afterwards. I mean, my first karate sensei Ski, he'd break out a chessboard and put a block of hash in his mouth afterwards and chew hash and play chess with everybody. I mean, Matsuoka sensei's not like that. Matsuoka sensei come to class, he teaches class, and and he's funny, and he'll tell jokes, and he's social. I mean, he's not stoic in that sense, but I mean, he's like the transmission is happening, and it's not through words.
Hmm. Okay, thank you for that. Um, yeah, sorry, I had a different question, but here's this one. So, moving to the broader thing, or the broad topic of Tenshin Aikido itself. Um, do you feel that Tenshin Aikido's relation, and even broader than that, Aikido's relation to Steven Seagal, do you feel that that has ultimately had a positive impact on the art, or do you feel that it has a negative impact on the art?
Oh, I think Seagal is 100% positive. I mean, there's no, without a doubt. I think what we've seen is a whole generation of people that got into Aikido that never would have if it weren't for Seagal. I think people probably wouldn't have even heard of it. Now, wouldn't have heard of Aikido. I mean, you got Andrew Tate going to Aikido. I don't know if you've seen him do that, but I mean, he wouldn't even have heard of Aikido if it weren't for Seagal. There's no way. I think there's no way. I mean, I know guys, and I'm not going to say who it is, but I know probably at least 5 or 6 guys who are, high level instructors under Matsuoka Sensei who only got into it because of Seagal.
Hmm.
And and some of them are stuck there. I think, some of them I think they want to be him. And I understand. Like when I was like 18, 19, 20, and I started practicing Aikido, and I saw above the law and out for justice, and Seagal was cool. I wanted to be like that too. But then you grow up, and you continue practicing, and you want to be more like yourself. So, but I have no I don't think I see no negatives about Seagal and Aikido at all. I think we need another one. I think we need someone else to revitalize the popularity of Aikido. And I think it'll happen actually. It's just it's Aikido is like a I want to say it's a thinking man's martial art, but it's even beyond that. It's like a transcendent man's martial art, because if you just want to be tough and beat somebody up, there's a lot of stuff you can do. But if you really like want to go down the rabbit hole of 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 reality, I mean, in a way, like, uh, I mean, literally, Matsuoka Sensei, he'll show you something you can do for 10 seconds, and it's going to change the energetic structure and strength of your whole body in 10 seconds. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, that's, you know, and 15 minutes later, you will have lost it. But you can go to the gym for 40 years and you can't have that 10 seconds of strength. So there's a totally different, there's a totally different understanding of reality. I mean, like I say, Matsuoka Sensei taught me how to walk. He's like, look, just he teaches the basics, and after 10 years, you're still trying to learn the basics in a way. The basics of everything. I mean, this is cliche to say that, but if I need to learn how to move my body, like, when did I learn how to move it wrongly? So
Yeah, no. All right, well,
no,
thank you for that.
Seagal on that positive. And I do want to say also, like, when you say Tenshin Aikido today in the world, the only Tenshin Aikido today in the world that I'm really aware of would be Fujitani Sensei's dojo in Osaka, if that's still going on. And then it would probably be Gary Sensei's dojo in Indiana. And then it's going to be Bartek in Warsaw. It's going to be Thierry Bodie in Belgium. It's going to be the Spanish brothers in Sevilla. It's going to be Danny Diaz down in what's the name of his town? It's down there in southern Spain. Who else? I mean, so I know the guys that are sort of Matsuoka related, and I'm sure there's a whole Tenshin group that's still under Seagal Sensei. But I don't know those guys, and I'm not getting them on my social media feeds or anything like that. I follow Seagal's, I think it's Tenshin Dojo Europe or something on Facebook, I see, and they post some stuff of him like teaching classes once in a while. It looks like in Russia. So, but I don't know about I know nothing about the sort of larger Tenshin Aikido world outside of the sort of Matsuoka bubble.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I talked to, I think, a few other Tenshin guys, and I think they were either a little bit later or they were under one of Seagal Sensei's earlier students, and they've all mentioned that Tenshin Aikido has this isolating aspect to it, where it's just kind of, I don't say insular, but it's just, okay, well, we're just going to do our stuff here, and we're not going to worry about anybody else that says that they're Tenshin Aikido, or anybody else, period. So yeah.
Well, I think that's simple. You just have to look at the lineage. I mean, you can say whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm working on a project now. It's called Dojopop. It's Dojo Proof of Practice. And what we're starting to do is we're starting to track attendance, and then we're recording it into a 200-year decentralized data storage archive. So, you could say your Tenshin dojo but let's see if the lineage tracks.
Mm-hmm.
That's simple. Okay, your Tenshin dojo. Who's your sensei, and how long did you practice with them, and what did you earn, and and if that's the case, sure, no problem. And if not, then whatever. That's sort of one of my missions now, is to start recording that, because when I started in Osaka, Fujitani Sensei gave me this little membership card.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my prized possession for years, man. Every time you go to class, you drop it off, and they'd stamp it, and they put you in there that you were there, and that was it, man. And then I lost it one day, and I'm recreating that in a sort of technological way, so that we don't have to lose that again. Your grandkids will be able to see who you practiced with, when you practiced, and if you want to go practice in Brazil, you show up with your Dojopop passport, and they're like, who the fuck are you? You're like, right here, bro. Here it is. Record of my practice. So, but at the same time, I have no problem if people want to be insular and tribal and practice on their own. That's good. I think walls make strong communities, and of course you have to. Like, I practice with some schools sometimes, and they refuse to practice with anybody else, which I think is stupid, because then it's the incestuousness of anything eventually leads to weakness. You practice with the same guys doing the same techniques all the time, and I don't care how good you are. People that are outside your system are going to crush you if you're not aware of what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
from a larger, self-defense point of view. And don't get me wrong, you can just practice your style of Aikido and never leave the dojo for a lifetime and have tons of benefits and have a great happy time. That's great. But it also, I think you got to get out and grab other people and have your style tested and have yourself tested and see if what you're doing is real or not.
No,
I don't mean you have to get in street fights.
No. You actually bring up Dojopop, but I did have a specific question there, and you kind of covered a little bit of it. But so it's a digital passport where, like you said, anyone can ask. It's like, hey, so how long have you doing this? What lineage are you? And then it's and then it's right there. How have you seen? Actually, first of all, when did this start becoming? Sorry, when did this start actually becoming a a tangible thing, and how have you seen it grow since then?
So I had the idea years ago. I mean, at least probably 2 or 3, maybe 4 or 5. And I entered a couple hackathons with it, but my hacker skills weren't great, and I didn't get a lot of traction, and I got a lot of frustration. And finally, literally like 6 or 7 weeks ago, I was trying to build it in some software language and it's getting increasingly frustrated. And then I did my morning. In the morning, I do a yoga practice, a little weight practice, then a sword practice, and then I meditate. And I was in my meditation, and all of a sudden it was like dum 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 dum. And I was like, "Holy crap! I could roll this out tomorrow." And I saw a way that I could literally get people scanning in with a QR code and start recording their attendance. And that was 6 weeks ago. Now we have about 10, and we're in alpha testing now. It's very early. It's just early. But now we have about 10 dojos using it. New York, Mexico City, Chile, Ecuador, Colombia, Austria, the Netherlands, Madrid. I'm forgetting some guys. It's in about 10 countries right now. Probably about 150 people are actively using it. We do a monthly worldwide leaderboard. So we just had our first one was for May, and we're coming to the end of June. So we're going to release our June leaderboard. And then I have one of my sort of colleagues is the president of, and I'm not going to say what school it is or where it is, but he runs about 50 schools in one style and with about 5,000 students. So we're building our next iteration now, and we're going to roll it out to them to do further testing and then keep expanding from there. So hopefully, like, we have about 150 users today. I think by Christmas we'll have between 5,000 and 7,000. And again, by the way, the worldwide leaderboard is just really so we compete to get us to practice. It's not John Q is the strongest practitioner in the world. But what I would like to see happen in a few years, and we get some more people onto it, is maybe once a year we have sort of a get together or a jamboree where like the top 10 guys come and demonstrate what they've been doing. Not a fight, but if they want to fight, it depends on who wants to join, right? The Dojopop Kumite. But really the Dojopop has many phases we're working on, but the first one is simply to start protecting and preserving the lineage, right? Mm-hmm. Who's practicing, how long they've been practicing, and that goes from the present into the future as we continue to record classes. But also I want to roll up the past too, so we get the history as well. But that's going to take time, right? Mm-hmm. But my second goal with Dojopop is to start preserving techniques, right? Because the techniques, the only place the technique live are in the practitioners, and then I don't know if I have any notes in here, but or as stick figures, right? I don't know if I have any notes here. Like I was with one of my teachers the other day making stick figures of swords. But otherwise, where do the techniques live? So like my sword lineage almost died out. It was down to one person, and we sort of like reconstituted it like dehydrated soup. I mean, So next step in Dojopop after recording the lineage is preserving the techniques, and for that we're going to be using video. You go to a class, sensei teaches. We're gonna take that video and we're gonna store it on this 200-year distributed storage. It's called Arweave, which we use in our back end, and then we can also make it so it's secret or open, right? Which I think is very important because some lineages or parts of some lineages are secret. Like, Matsuoka Sensei, I told you I sold my car to go practice with him in Europe, right? I'll never forget. We're in Belgium. He says to me, Zari, you probably learned in this class 1,000 times as much you would have learned if you didn't come and you stayed in LA. And I was like, Sensei, really? Thank God, because I sold my goddamn car. And then he said to the class, he said, look, guys, the things I'm teaching in this class, I don't teach anywhere. These are secret. Okay? So the way Dojopop works is if you were at that class in Belgium, right, you checked in with Dojopop, you're going to receive a special token. And that token gives you access to the video of that class. And if you don't have that token, you can't see the video, right? Now, when you die, that token can go to your kids, to your students. You can actually set up a dead man switch so that when you die, your Dojopop token for that Belgium thing or your Dojopop tokens for this thing, they can get, again, it's a dead man switch. You die and they can all get transferred to somebody else. So so if you want to keep it secret, you can keep it secret, but still preserve it, right? And if you don't want to keep it secret, you can keep it open, no problem. And you can do and you probably want to do, 80% public and 10% private and 5% super private and 5% you keep for yourself, So anyway, so this is sort of how I'm thinking with Dojopop. And, we're also working on stuff for a little bit long term, probably 2 years out, maybe sooner, but probably 2 years out, where, like, for example, Abe Sensei passed away, right? Well, maybe we have 1,000 hours of video of Abe Sensei teaching, right? And we have notes, so we can upload that 1,000 hours of Abe teaching. We can run it through some processors, and we can have you come ask Abe Sensei. Abe Sensei, what do you think of my technique? And we can run that through the processor. So basically, we're going to be able to have like I don't like to say AI avatar, but that's exactly what it is. We're going to be able to create AI avatars of dead teachers. So, like, for example, if you start using Dojopop today, 150 years from now, the grandchildren of your students could ask you a question like, hey, grandpops, how's my technique? And you can tell them. And I think we're going to be able to do that with a reasonable degree of effectiveness. And again, maybe not, the most important thing, again, is for me is the lineage and the techniques. And let me say this also, it's the stories, actually. It's the stories. Because you learn so much listening to your teacher talk or listening to other students talk about their experience of learning martial arts, their experience of using martial arts, their experience. I mean, just like what we're doing here, like this should be on, not that anything I say is particularly valuable, but I am part of the lineage. So, so this should be recorded on Dojopop for the next 200 years. And if you want to know about the Tenshin Aikido lineage, you should be able to have this, right? So, and that's not the techniques and it's not the lineage, but it's stories of the lineage, right?
Right. Wow. I mean, you're trying to capture everything about the martial arts in just an app. That's actually that's a lot of work, and I wish you the best of luck reaching all those goals. But I mean,
it's just I just want to say, it's mission creep is it's terrible everywhere. Today we're just capturing the lineage, right? Step 2 is we're going to start working on. We're already capturing the techniques, but I'm not focusing on that because, of course, like, most people are recording their classes now because a lot of them are live streaming. So that's already happening in the background. So in some ways, Dojopop is about collating this and building the community, and then the technology to store it's already there. So I'm not reinventing the wheel, and I'm not, trying to make a Swiss Army knife. I'm just sort of bringing some things together that already exist that I think benefit all martial arts communities, not just Aikido, not just sword, not just Karate Do, So.
Oh, that's really cool. So you are looking for for this to be used across all different martial arts, not just Japanese or Chinese or sword arts. It's like all the.
Yeah, right now we've got karate schools using it. We've got Aikido schools using it. We've got some ninja schools using it. We've got a bunch of sword schools using it. So it's it's totally non-denominational. We're also talking to some people about licensing the business method model. Like I have another friend who's building like the new generation of Nautilus machines, and they're going to need proof of practice too. So although it's not a dojo, we'll probably end up working together with the back end of what I'm doing.
No, that's really cool. That's really cool. Hopefully, again, everything goes your way and goes on that timeline. So awesome. Last question that I have here is, and you touched upon this earlier in the interview, but you currently train sword art, the Tenshin Ryu Hyodo, or Hyoho, sorry.
Hyoho.
Yes, Hyoho.
Okay.
So how'd you come to find this art, since I know you mentioned before that it was a very, very small art?
So, I mean, in Aikido, we practice sword. We've got Aikiken, we've got Aikijo, and I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, Masaoka Sensei had some Yaido guys come and teach us some stuff. Like I remember particularly Akeshi Tsuyoshi Sensei came, and I think he was a student of Kono Sensei's. So I've had a katana for a while, and I've learned a few basic techniques of drawing the sword. And I was interested in learning more, but I didn't really want to meet anyone I want to study under, And then probably like probably 2.5, probably 3 years ago, this sword video popped up on my YouTube feed. And it was these guys, Tenshin Ryuhyo, and it was just, he was like basically doing like a noto, like putting the sword back in the sheath. I was like, totally, what the hell? Holy crap, that was beautiful. And I started watching these guys, and there's something really special about them. And so there's three main sensei. There's Tenshin Sensei. He's 80. I think he's 81 now, and he's the 9th generation lineage holder. And then there's Kuamin Sensei, who's the 10th, and then there's Ide Sensei, who's the 11th generation in Tenshin Ryu. And Kuamin Sensei is probably in his 40s. Ide Sensei's in his 30s, and Ide Sensei was teaching like a half an hour Tenshin Ryu class in English. So once every 2 weeks, I'd watch. I'd put on my outfit and put my Aikido black belt on, and I put my katana in it, and I'd try and follow along in class. And it was cool. I learned a little bit. I could follow along with the basics. And I was planning on coming to Japan, and I hoped to maybe practice with them, but I had no idea if they'd even talk to me, right? So I got over here, what's this, in 2024? I got over here like in July of 2022. In, I think, August, I sent an email saying, I'm in Japan, I'd like to practice with you. And Ide Sensei basically messaged me back, and he's like, I like to tell stories. He was very nice. He's kind of like, who are you and how long are you here for? And I said, well, I've been practicing with Matsuoka Sensei for 30 years, and I'm in Japan probably for a long time, and I'd like to come to class. And he said, okay, no problem, come. And then I came to class, and Kuamin Sensei, who's the 10th, he's sort of the linchpin of the whole school really today. He's carrying the weight. He greeted me. He was so nice. He was so nice. Hello, thank you so much for coming. It was a small class. It was down in Yokohama, maybe 4 or 5 people there that night. And he said, oh, so you practiced with Matsuoka Sensei? I said, yeah. He said, my teacher, Tenshin Sensei, he was best friends with your teacher's teacher. I'm like, wait a second, Sigal? And it turns out that Tenshin Sensei was like best friends, I think, with one of Sigal's like Japanese buddies, right? Mm-hmm. So this small world. So I start practicing with Tenshin Ryu Hyoho, and dude, it's awesome. I mean, it's I haven't been so excited, about martial arts since I met Ski in Philadelphia, and then since I met Tenshin Aikido in Osaka. And I was invited to Tenshin Sensei's house on New Year's last year, and in his house he's got like, I don't know, he's got 1,000 swords and 600 sets of armor and like a boar's head here. I mean, it's like a museum. It's crazy. But in the sort of place of honor, like the sort of shomen, the kamidama area, he has a photograph, and it's the place of preeminence in his house. He has a photograph of the Osaka Tenshin Dojo, and him
Oh,
sit and him in there in Seiza. So that's pretty crazy that like my core sort of heart of martial arts is I mean, it's, but how does that happen? So and then probably a year ago, I get to class and Ide Sensei's like rushing me. I don't like to be rushed. He's like, come on, change, hurry up and change, hurry up and change. I'm like, oh, screw you, man. I don't want to rush. But I do. I rush. I get up there. And I realize the reason he's rushing me is because he's going to invite me to become a formal student of Tenshin Ryu. He wants to do it before class starts. So I'm like, okay, I'll rush. And he pulls out this book and he says, look, this is our Tenshin Ryu Hyoho lineage. All the students for the last 400 years are in this, and I'd like to invite you formally. If you'd like to become a student, we're going to put your name in this book. Then you can put your thumbprint in blood. I said, awesome. Thank you so much, Sensei. And I signed the book and I say to him, listen, what happens if there's a fire? What happens to this book? He says, poof, it's gone. And I was like, oh, there's another reason for Dojopop.
Oh, that's awesome. One, awesome how how they welcomed you in. And two, how that kind of gave way to Dojopop in a sense. Just as an aside, and I know sword arts are, their movements are very different from how Aikido uses their movements. So how much did your previous Aikido training help you with learning Tenshin Ryu, or did you have to like completely learn something different?
No, actually, I would say that they're not very different. And Tenshin Ryu is not just sword. We also do spear and we also do open hand. Yawara and stickle and chain actually is pretty cool. But they're not very different. I think my training has helped me a lot. The biggest difference for me and the hardest habits for me to sort of overcome is with Aikido and even in karate. Like I have a tendency to want to sort of stay in close to protect myself. And with sword, it's the opposite. You get in and you make your thing and you get out. You create space. You get out of striking distance, because if you're in that 80 centimeter range, you can get cut. So that's the biggest whereas in like sort of Matsuoka's Aikido, I'm always sort of trying to keep my body relatively aligned vertically. I'm not doing a lot of like sort of fencing stretching. With some Tenshin Ryu techniques, it's almost like ballet. Like your body is making shapes that it's not used. It's not a different sort of movement or timing necessarily, but it's a little more extreme in stretching, because you're really trying to get that tip in and then to get out, if that makes sense. I mean, sometimes you're moving in and you're dominating them, so that you don't have to escape. But that's the biggest difference is the distance for me.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm just looking at my questions right now. That's kind of really it for me. Do you have anything that you'd like to add or say before we wrap up?
No, I mean, I'd love to learn a little bit more about what you're doing, and I'll do my research. I want to thank you for the opportunity today. I really appreciate it. I would like to say, if anybody's listening to this and they want to learn more about Dojopop, they can go check out dojopop.xyz. We also have a Twitter feed, Dojopop47, like the 47 Ronin. So Dojopop47 on Twitter or X. And if you're interested in learning more, by all means, feel free to reach out to me. You can DM me, you can find me. I'm all over social media too much. And we're very early in building. So, we're looking for help on the tech side. We're looking for help on the social media side. If you have any skills that you think might be useful for what we're doing, and you like our mission, let me know. We have a nonprofit side as well. So, and the goal is to protect and preserve the historical martial arts and contemporary martial arts, both Eastern and Western, for the upcoming generations, and really for the next 10 generations. And although, we've been talking about Eastern martial arts and, mostly Japanese martial arts today, we're totally non-denominational, and I'm totally interested in working more with the HEMA, the Historical European Martial Arts Community. I think what they're doing is very interesting, and like Wiktenauer is a very interesting website if you're interested in HEMA. So anyway, if you think we might have a common mission, by all means, reach out. And I'm looking forward to learning more about you. And maybe we can circle back in 6 months or a year and see where you are in your project. And I also would like to follow up with you on trying to track down the birth of the initial seed of the Tenshin Aikido style. I think that would be fun and fascinating to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, yeah, thank you for taking the time to do this. Absolutely. Would like to circle back with the attention thing, with the shortcuts and everything. Yeah, no, I mean, if we can help each other along with any projects, I'd be more than happy to. Um, Shoot, I'm sorry, I thought I had something else. Again, being up at 2 o'clock in the morning.
No problem. I do the reverse all the time. I know how it is. Thank you for accommodating my schedule.
Yeah, no, absolutely no problem at all. So I'm just trying to think of anything else that I need to say or we need. So I'm just going to stop recording right now, and I'm just going to go
Okay,
through the post interview process stuff.